thanks. I really appreciate being here. I was at the last demo camp, had a great time. I realize that there is no PowerPoint allowed, but we do ship a presentation tool with Windows called Notepad. This is me. My name's John Bristowe. I'm what's called a developer advisor, and I work for Microsoft Canada, not Microsoft. If you need to reach me, this is my email address. So basically, the demo that I kind of decided, Kempton and I were having a chat about, what are we going to show? And to be honest, I'm a developer, so I don't know if Visual Studio and those types of products would have been incredibly interesting for you to see. So we have this little project here that we've been kind of playing around with, and Kempton had a little bit of a look at it. It's called Popfly, and what I'd like to do is give you a brief demo of what it does and how it looks. So first things first, I'm going to sign in. This is a closed alpha, by the way, but I do have 5 invites. So if you are interested,
I leave the room.
I will shoot you an invite today. So let's see if I can log in here. All right. So Popfly is this little project that could. It's basically leveraging a technology that we've built, maybe some of you have heard of, called Silverlight. And the idea behind this site is to basically enable what's called a mashup. So for those of you who don't know, mashup is a term coming from the sort of DJ era of taking all these sampling of mixes and kind of pushing them together to create a new sound. With applications, we have all these services available on the internet today. So we have services from Flickr, we have services from Delicious, we have services from Technorati. These are all exposed to a number of different ways, either through SOAP, through POX, through REST, whatever you want to use. And what's happening on the internet today is you're seeing a lot of sites being built that leverage these services and build a next big thing. And so Popfly is kind of like the sort of YouTube for applications. It's basically a way of allowing you to create content without having any programming experience whatsoever. So here I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to create a mashup. So the first things first, you're going to go to this create function and you're going to say create mashup. We have other options as well. We have a WYSIWYG designer for building web pages. I'm not going to show you that, but you can go ahead and check it out. So here I'm going to go ahead and create a new mashup. And the way that mashups are built with Popfly is what we do is we basically encompass these APIs, these web service APIs we have on the internet today, in what are called blocks. So on this surface here, this is your sort of standard design surface. What you see on the left here are blocks, which basically encompass these APIs. So we have APIs here from a variety of different services. So we have APIs from things like Dig, from Flickr, from, name an API that you like, and we've likely got one. And these are some of the ones that we have built in. So we have, APIs for live spaces, we have APIs for MSN. In total, we have currently 329 blocks, some of which we built, the vast majority of which have been built by our community. So where this line ends, and where it begins, is everything else beneath that is built by the community. So here's the idea. Let's assume that, I want to build a mashup. And first things first, I'd like to get some photos from Flickr. How many people here use Flickr? I pay my $80. I love Flickr. So let's go ahead and drag and drop a block onto the Flickr site here. So, I haven't done any code yet, but here's the idea. With Flickr, you have APIs, and you have to have what's called a developer ID. This is like an API key. And inside here, if we go ahead and bring up the properties for this block, you can see here we have an operation listed on the left-hand side. And this is an API that's exposed by Flickr. And as you can see, we have a number of different APIs. So we have get photos, get tags, get user photos, get photo set, etc. What I can do here is I can say, for example, get all geotag photos that match the following criteria. So the criteria here is beach. And the number of photos I want to get is 15. So with that being said, what I'm doing is I'm getting photos that have geotag or coordinates as part of the ancillary metadata. And what I might like to do is map their positions on a map, for example. So I can go ahead and use a service like Virtual Earth to go ahead and map those photos on top of a mapping design surface. So as you can see here, we have this sort of translucent material. You can see what's happening under the covers. That's essentially the app being built on the fly. And all I have to do to basically map the photos that I have is I just simply take this element here and I bind it to the virtual Earth block that you see listed there. Now with that binding, the node now has enough information to map those bindings to certain coordinates or APIs that we have in Flickr. And so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a custom push pin. So this is an operation we support with Virtual Earth, now called Live Maps. And basically the idea is I want to create these custom push pins at these following coordinates, which came from Flickr, and use this image URL that I have listed here to basically map those on top of my design surface. So with that being said, fingers crossed, we'll hit preview. What this is going to go now and do is going to go off to Flickr, get 15 photos with the name beach in the title, and then apply those as custom push pins on the map. So now that I've done that, I can go ahead and zoom in here. And you can see that these photos have been geotagged, so they have a lat and long. And you can see here we have some photos. These are custom push pins, so as I hover over one, you can see we get a description. But basically that's the idea, this idea of taking two services that know nothing about each other and then just kind of smushing them together to create what's called a mashup. And that's kind of the idea behind Popfly. It's kind of the way of making us, as the audience, creators for the content. So Popfly is this service, and it uses Silverlight as the underlying technology. And if you go to popfly.com today, there are a number of quick starts that show you examples of things that you can do. So for example, traffic in Seattle is another example. This one's going to use services from Yahoo Traffic and Virtual Earth to basically map certain things that you should avoid when driving a car in Seattle, for example. So here I have another developer API key, and it's going to map positions on the map, custom push pins that are for Seattle. You can see they're starting to show up here. All of which is opaque to basically the person who's building this mashup. So here you can see I have some information. These are custom push pins that describe certain incidents that have happened on the freeways. And the nice thing about this is once you're done building this mashup, you can actually take this content and push it anywhere you want. So if you have a website that you want to put this mashup on, you can go ahead and do that. And the great thing about this is we have actually a very vibrant community building up these types of demos going forward. How much time do I have left?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, excellent.
2.5.
Okay. So that's essentially the biggest component of Popfly, which is the mashup creation. And as I showed you, there's tons of blocks that you can use, and you can actually build your own. The other aspect of Popfly is this sort of WYSIWYG designer in line with the browser itself. And this is, again, just showing some of the capabilities that we have for this. The team has actually gone ahead and built this out. And I've lost my video. 1 second here to switch it back. Let's see here. For some reason, my video dropped out. Ignore the man behind the curtain for a second. No display connected. Well, in this case, I'll take questions. I'm still showing up here. I have a blue screen in case anyone was wondering. And that's it. Thank you. Good night. Any questions? Yes.
You said you can export whatever you create using a mashup onto maybe a different website. But what about exporting it into different channels, maybe voice, maybe something else? So I know Microsoft's got this big initiative on speech right now.
Yep.
So if I wanted to create a speech application where I would have access to this information if I call a phone number, would that be possible?
Great question. I think you're only limited by your imagination because the blocks themselves are highly customizable. You can actually create a speech component block. The only issue that you face there, though, is the fact that you're running inside the context of the browser. So if by any miracle you can actually reach outside the context of the browser, which with Silverlight currently you cannot do, then yes, that would be possible. So we have the infrastructure. It's just the runtime environment is isolated to the browser, which, as we all know, is sandboxed. So we have a bit of an issue there. But thinking about those sorts of things, building blocks around those lines, is certainly possible. Perhaps not speech, but certainly other ideas as well. Any other questions? Yes. That's right. Yeah, that was actually that was the first time I ran that demo. So I was trying to show you live data. That is definitely live. So yeah, and that's the idea behind web services. That idea I can just. It's basically system-to-system communication. And so the idea is I can actually send requests off to, say, Yahoo or to Flickr or to MSN or whatever, and sync that data together in the form of a mashup. And basically, you can do that today as a developer. We've been able to do that for a very long time. But you know, it hasn't been until recently that we've actually tried to enable non-developers, non-technical types to actually build these types of things. Because quite often it's the non-techies who have the best ideas. We're just the plumbers. We're the ones who put the bits together. So we being the developers. I'm a developer. So. Any other stuff?
So how does this product, outside of it using what technology Microsoft has bought, how does it differentiate like X-Types or more recent Google version of X-Types?
Yeah, great question. Certainly the ideas are the same. This idea that I can actually stitch together disparate systems and applications to build a new application. You know, I haven't actually done a thorough analysis between the differences, so I'd love to hear from you guys. So, you know, if you have an observation about Yahoo Pipes and does it map, you know, sort of to what I'm showing here, then let me know. That'd be great.
What's the deal with Silverlight?
Okay, so Silverlight is the quick elevator pitch is basically Silverlight is a way of enhancing the user experience on the web. Because the reality is HTML and JavaScript just don't cut it. And so what Silverlight tries to do is it tries to bring that world forward while at the same time giving you the appropriate tools for the people who are building software to build those types of applications. So Silverlight is essentially a cross-browser, cross-platform implementation of .NET running inside the browser. This runs on Windows and Mac OS X. Runs on the 4 big browsers, Opera, IE, Firefox, and Safari. And basically, it's a way of actually enhancing the user experience. And right now we have 2 versions of Silverlight, version 1 and version 1.1. Version 1 is all about bringing high-definition video and XAML-rendered content to the web. The other one is basically the .NET integration, where developers can start building these applications with languages like C# and VB. And if you want to have a chat about Silverlight afterwards, I'm more than happy to do that as well. So, no other questions? Yeah.
I'm sure this question gets asked all the time. I've never heard anybody defend it though, and I thought you might have an interesting perspective.
Okay.
Why would folks that creative property, intellectual property side, why would people trust a mashup, trust code coming from over here and resources coming? I love the idea. I think it's a great idea. Why would a business rely on that? Have you heard somebody articulate a nice defense?
I can give you my opinion if you take it. My opinion is that when I was building out web apps back in the late 90s, there was always this vision, this dream that wouldn't it be beautiful if I could actually get my data from a repository that I no longer had to maintain, that was somewhat reliable, because the reality, I didn't want to maintain that data. It's all about data, really, at the end of the day. And if anyone here has done a massive database project, evolving schema, maintaining data, make sure it's clean, getting the data, these are massive headaches. And so why not just offset that to someone else to actually get that data? From an issue of trust, absolutely, you have to make sure that you trust the provider of your data. And there's all kinds of issues around mashups, like uptime, reliability, that sort of thing. And I think it's also with that power comes responsibility. You have to make sure that you're doing due diligence to make sure that the provider of that data is doing what they intend to do, which is provide reliable, accurate data. So.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I understand it's a hard position to defend this.
Not really, actually. The whole industry, it's not just Microsoft. I mean, the entire industry. This is totally where the trend is seemingly going right now. So. My apologies for the video. So. All right, it's still showing here. You've seen it.